I came out here because I kind of wanted to show off the garden a little bit. We've had rain pretty much non-stop for about 2 weeks, and during that time these Chinese noodle beans have shot up. They are over the top of the trellis, and I've actually looped them back down some, but the plan was to finish off this trellis before the storm. Look at that. Isn't that pretty cool? So I don't worry about aphids at all, which we do have aphids on these noodle beans. But you also have fire ants farming them, the lady beetles kind of taking care of it. So this morning this plant had a lot of aphids, and now it's really not nearly as bad as it was. Okay, so another thing that occurred was we lost this whole big section of a tree during the storms, and really today's the first day it's actually been anywhere near clear, and drizzled a bit today too. So we have this entire plant here that is broken off. I'm pretty sure that these vines right here are what's holding it up. I'm actually extremely allergic to poison ivy, and I just accidentally touched it right about my sleeve a few minutes ago, and I'm definitely really nervous on how bad I'm gonna break out on that arm. Hopefully it's not bad because it just barely brushed me. However, you can see, yeah, it looks like it's flowering and all that horrible stuff. There's all sorts of poisonous everything, and unfortunately this fell right by the garden. The tree lice, one of those things that's really tricky to trim. Some of the trees are on our property, some are on the neighbors, and so we're gonna have to get this cleaned up before it just takes over the garden. I've been really trying to keep these vines from climbing this way. You can see how they're pointed up towards this oak that's right above it. I mean, these runner beans I keep calling them runner beans. They're Chinese noodle beans, but they're just running straight up to the tree. And they're doing insanely great. I did not expect them to do this well. And I'm going to turn around over here and show you. So this right here is a much bigger trellis that we've doctored up. We previously used it for peas, and now we've put stronger wire on it and put these noodle beans all at the bottom. And I just planted them. I came out during a break in the storm about a week and a half ago and planted them, and they're already up above the ground growing. And I'm telling you what, I guarantee you in 2 weeks they'll be 8 foot high all the way up this trellis and climbing down the other side. So I need to get the rest of the wire on this other side. But there feels like there is no time right now. There is so much happening, so much going on. I can't believe how fast time has gone by the last few weeks. So a couple of pretty significant things have happened in the garden. That's not the only tree we lost. We lost quite a bit of trees in the back. However, the flooding is really bad back there, so I'm just avoiding the backyard. There's too many poisonous snakes in this part of Texas that I've seen in there to even want to tread through it. But look at this. The Joliet tomato is producing its first tomato, and it is doing it on all 3 of these plants. So there's one here, one there, and on this last one it's a bit lighter. I'm so excited because these are the first 3 tomatoes of the season that will be ripe. I am so impressed with the Joliet tomato and the fruit that it's produced on the trusses. It's early in the season. It's still early May. This is gonna do so well. I'm really excited. If you know anything about me, I can grow just about anything except tomatoes. This is the first year that our tomatoes have just really thrived. We've always been able to grow tomatoes, but not like this. Not this many plants, not this many varieties, and had continuous success. So I'm really excited. The cool thing is that for the most part, this bed has not been taken over by grass or anything else during the storm. I'm really excited about that. The peppers have started producing some. This Brandywine tomato has shot up in size. It is like 6 times bigger than it was. Oops. It's just, you can see how we were in the middle of the project when the last couple weeks of rain kind of hit. Now this I want to show off because this is the first shishito pepper we have ever grown. Ever. And I was most excited to try this pepper. I've heard so many great things about it. I'm kind of nervous. I don't even want to eat it, even though it's the first pepper. I almost want to save it for seeds because I wanted that variety so bad. But I think it's just gonna grow and thrive, and I want to see it produce more fruit before I go saving seeds anyways. It's actually quite a bit taller than it looks in the video where I'm standing. In fact, there are quite a few peppers, and they're all doing fairly well. So I'm confident that we are going to have a tremendous harvest of both peppers and tomatoes this season. A few other tomatoes that are doing really well is this Thunderbird tomato. I have never grown it before. I've never even heard of it before. And so we planted it, and even though it's been extremely rainy, it's actually doing fairly well. It has set a pretty good sized fruit. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. This is the Cherokee Purple. It's one of those heirloom varieties that is just amazing. It's one of my favorites, but it is definitely susceptible to diseases, and that's one thing I worry about here, especially with all of the rain. So it's starting to set blossoms. I'm hoping that it's going to be okay, but I'm not going to lie, some of the foliage definitely looks a little bit rough. Now, this tomato, every time I've grown it, has had all of this darkness around the leaves, so I'm not worried about that in the least. It's mostly all the yellowing and the rotting of the leaves like this, and I know that with rain often comes diseases for those varieties that are a little more susceptible to it. And then this one has some too on it, a little bit of damage from all the rain for sure, curled leaves, not looking its best, but the fruit looks really good. This is one of those Sweet 100s, and this plant is, I know it's going to get 8 to 10 feet tall if it stays healthy. Sweet 100s just shoot up. They're such an easy hybrid to grow. The tomatoes are a small tomato. They're easy to just pick and let the kids have a snack. So I'm really looking forward to this. I know that that's going to produce a ton of fruit, and that it's probably in the long run not going to be bothered by all the pests and any kind of disease that could have come in with the rain. Then this one right here is a bobcat tomato. It's another one that I've never grown before, and it's another one that looks like it took some damage during the rain for sure. I've already trimmed down all of this in here, the little branches of the tomatoes. However, this looks pretty rough. I'm not sure what's going on here. I have no idea. This is a determinate tomato, and I've never grown it before, so I have no idea what to expect. Other than that, the top foliage looks a bit healthy, although I will say this part looks different than everywhere else, so I might need to research this bobcat. If anyone's grown the bobcat before, let me know, because I'm very curious. And here's our lemon boy. You can definitely see it looks a little rough for sure after all of that rain. Yeah, it's not the prettiest I've ever seen it. This is kind of what it's supposed to look like, and the top of the plant does have a fruit, which I kind of wanted to like grow, but this is a fairly small plant right now to have such a heavy fruit on it, so I'm not sure if that's going to be the best decision. I may come back at a later date and take it off. I just really need to think on it, because all of the tomatoes are my son's absolute favorite things. The one thing he's asked for in the garden besides the blackberries, but this was a big ask from everyone this year, and so I really wanted to come through and at least try my hand at growing tomatoes in a couple of different ways. I just noticed that I was so quick to overlook this bobcat. I didn't realize how many flowers are trying to set fruit all in here. This one actually looks like it has a small fruit, so I am curious to see how that goes. From what I've read, these are only supposed to be 2 or 3 ounce fruits, but again, I'm really not sure what to expect. But let me just kind of turn around, because the garden is such a hot mess. You can see the thyme has went from the little bitty plants it was and taken over this whole bed, but the weeds are out of control. The grass has grown so high. My brother tried to mow the best he could with how muddy it is today, because some of the weeds and where the grass is seeding was up past my thigh area. It was just absolutely insane how much the grass has grown in 2 weeks. Here I've planted another fig tree. I'm really excited to see it take off. And then all the baby blackberries are actually really taking off. These are the newer ones. Once again, I haven't weeded. And this one even has a little berry on it. And it's almost 4 feet tall. The posts next to it are 4 feet tall. So that gives you a pretty good idea. And right in here, look at that. We have figs on our plants. That is really exciting. I've shown these the last time, but this fig plant is just taking off. So this is definitely one I'm going to get cuttings from. It was gifted to me and I absolutely adore it. But look at all of this, just how the flowers, weeds, everything's taken over, the grass that's growing in between the bed and the marjoram. And one of the coolest things is that my giant red mustard has gone to seed. So what you see here are all these seed pods, and these are volunteers from last year, and now they created seeds. You can see the caterpillars are everywhere on these plants, and honestly we're not going to eat anymore. I'm just saving seeds from it, so I'm just letting it be. I am too tired to care, and honestly, as long as we get seeds, I'm really excited. But here's the flower right there, that yellow flower, and then again, look at the seeds, and then oop, it's getting a little blurry so you can't quite see the caterpillar. Let's see. We're kind of in that awkward part of the night where it's just not really bright enough, not really dark enough, but anyways, there are little caterpillars all over this plant. It's actually really sticky, so that's cool. Our onions are getting pretty big too. Here's one of them. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? I'm really excited to save seed from that. Our lemon thyme here and here. And the problem with thyme is that it's so slow growing at first, it's easy for it to get taken over. So you really have to pay attention to that. And I'm ready to turn this bed once all of these flowers are done seeding into a true summer garden. But all these brassicas are absolutely gorgeous when they flower. This is another one of our giant mustards, and it is much smaller. It's crazy how when the sun hits them, unlike in the winter and fall when it's really cold, or even cooler than it is now when you talk about fall here, it's really red, and now you can see how green it is and how the pests have really taken over. However, same thing, I'm saving seeds. They did so good growing for me that I'm just not concerned about pests. Once I give the seeds, the rest of the plants will just go to the chickens. And then I want to show this bed because these blackberries are doing amazing. They are producing 2 pints in the morning and about 2 pints in the afternoon on 8 plants, and maybe more because there are more people than just myself coming out here and harvesting. But all of the kids are able to drink smoothies multiple times a day. And that's pretty incredible that all these plants are producing so much. But I want to show these beds. Look at all of this grass, all of this craziness growing. And that is because it has been raining non-stop pretty much. In Southeast Texas, Houston area has gotten hit really hard. We're pretty close to Liberty, Texas. They got hit extremely hard. I've had a lot of family lose houses and property the last couple of weeks, so it's been really intense. It's heartbreaking when things like that happen. If you've never been in a flood, I just hope and pray you never are, because it's not fun. And so, yeah, things are just out of control everywhere. Everything's a bit of a muddy mess. The grass is growing over, and I'm okay with that. Honestly, I really am. But I kind of wanted to show how fast things can just kind of go haywire in the garden, even though it's still producing really well. I know a lot of us worry. Look, poison ivy again. It's just everywhere. A lot of us worry about what'll happen if the weeds get out of control. And this is it. You can still get food in a garden that's full of weeds. And in fact, we had a ton more food in here. All of these are fennel, and it's a plant that I grow a lot of. And then you see all the chard sprinkled in. I just recently harvested this entire bed of fennel, chard, and cilantro, except for the smaller plants, and you can see where I even harvested the tops off of those. So I harvested so many bowls of food, even with all of these weeds. You can see my garden chairs just kind of thrown in there, just to try to get it cleared out of the way, so I can start clearing out weeds, because I get a little frustrated when I start pulling out plants by accident when I'm trying to clear weeds from the garden. And then this is another area that the marjoram, fennel, lettuce, all the plants have just gone insane. The downside is a lot of this is not going to be edible, because poison ivy has rooted and come up from the bottom on so many of these plants. Look at that, all the way around this fennel, and that's just really dangerous. So my husband's been suiting up for me and pulling it out. During the storms, it really got out of control, and so all of this, a lot of it just can't be eaten. You can imagine how dangerous it is to eat something you can have a severe allergic reaction to. There's kind of the reality of where we live and how fast the yard can go back to wild. And then look at this. It's even popping up in the new bed really close to these lettuce plants, and that can be pulled out, but honestly, these lettuce plants probably need to go. They're just here to bolt at this point. They never took off from the cooler weather, and now it's just way too late for them to do anything other than produce seed. And let's see, this was our potatoes over here, but as you can see, all the potatoes are pretty much gone, and it's not really because we harvest them. I came home from being out of town, and the ants had pretty much killed every potato plant in here. Just completely annihilated them. And then a lot of these potatoes, you can see where the ants just drilled holes right on through them, like it was absolutely nothing. I mean, they look pretty horrible. So if you're wondering how my potatoes did this year, yeah, not so great. I was really surprised. I know that ants are always a huge issue that we face, but I think with all of the rains, we have had more issues with fire ants in the last 2 to 3 weeks than ever before. They are pretty much on everything. So I'm paying close attention to what is thriving and combating those ants and surviving. And so far, it's all these heat-loving crops, especially these Chinese noodle beans. Those are my new favorite. They will have a permanent place in my garden. I think the Joliet tomatoes will have a permanent place in my garden. Those are two that I just absolutely adore and have done the best out of everything. So back here is where I had that pumpkin actually produced that I showed, and now a lot of these squash plants have died. They're pretty much gone. They really succumbed to disease during the storms, and you can see they've been burrowed through. This one's actually buried, and it looks like part of it is growing, and down here it's starting to trail off, and it looks fairly healthy. You can see it's producing small healthy fruits again. So I might just leave it alone and see what happens. You can kind of see this is the whole back area. Over here you can see how much water and mud are in here. It has gone down about 12 plus inches in a day or so. It was extremely high. I would say probably up to my calf in a lot of areas, and I'm up higher right now. So over here it's gone down a whole lot. You can see all the water all throughout here, and it even got all the way, it's a hot mess over here, okay? It got all the way up inside of the coop. That was a huge issue. Luckily, most of my chickens can get up high, and the geese weren't bothered, but for the meat chickens, it was a hot, horrible mess and a nightmare. I don't even recognize this part of my yard. If you've seen it before, you know just how overgrown it is. There's nothing we can do about it because there's so much water. It's still so wet back here. It's not worth the risk. And this is kind of where we had the rows of all our okra plants, and they are actually doing really, really well. So I've shared in the past, I did have a great experience with Heavy Hitter okra. It actually ended up looking like it was a totally different plant. But this time they survived all of the crazy weather patterns and this intense rain. And while some of our garden just kind of floated away, a lot of these plants didn't. And look how pretty good size they are. This one has a lot of pest damage on it, but I know okra and I think they're gonna survive just fine and produce anyways. So I have 1, 2, 3, don't know what that is. Oh yep, that's an okra too. 4, 5, 6 right here. And even with everything growing over and it being so many you can't even distinguish rows anymore, they're still doing really good. So here's another one, 7, 8, 9, and then here's a baby, 10. We're going to turn a little bit, 11, 12 plants that survived. So that's really cool. It looks like my experience with Heavy Hitter this year is going to be so much better. I'm really proud and impressed with it all. But if you've wondered where we've been, life has just been so incredibly crazy. And then the rain has not made it very easy to get out and do everything that we're supposed to do. So here it is and kind of what's going on. A look at the craziness in our yard and garden, but it is still producing a lot of food, all things considered, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you to everyone just kind of being patient and checking things out and seeing what's happening in our garden.